Well, John Hulley was a pathfinder, a trailblazer and a visionary. He was a man born in 1832. He come from a gentry family. All his family were doctors and surgeons, but he took a different line and he became a physical instructor, and he followed a fellow called Eugene, who was at the time was a world famous gymnast, and he developed his skills, but he brought physical education to the masses of Liverpool. And as his life developed, he went on to organise 6 Olympic festivals, 4 of them in Liverpool, 2 of them in North Wales. Well, in 2007, I got a phone call from a chap called Ray Physic, one of his PA, and he was writing a book called Played in Liverpool. And they were going back to the origins of all sports. And they were interested in the Cross Mersey swim. And he wanted me to write a few paragraphs and give a photograph, which I did. And when the book come out, I got a free copy, and I opened it up, seeing what I wrote. And I was gobsmacked. I went on to read that the first registered Cross Mersey swim was in the Grand Liverpool Olympic Festival of 1863. But we thought we were the first swimmers to swim across it. And to think that this guy had swam the Mersey, he hadn't swam the Mersey, but he organised the first Cross Mersey swim. Right away there was a connection. So as soon as we heard about it, we changed the name of the Cross Mersey swim to the John Hulley Cross Mersey swim. And it was during, I think it was 2011, this chap comes up and he introduces himself to me. And his name was Ray Hulley. Now he was no relation, but he was a family historian. And Ray had done a lot of research, and everything I know about John Hulley has come through the research of Ray Hulley. Well, if I don't do something about this now, it's going to go into history and fade away. I went to see a lady called Miriam at the Royal Court, and I spoke to her for about an hour because I wanted to do a play about John Hulley, but I realised quickly it was going to cost too much money, couldn't afford it, it was going to take too long. And I said to Miriam, look Miriam, this is not going to work. I said, how can I get this into schools, quickly? And she said, have you thought about writing a book in a comic form? And as soon as she said comic form, Tim Quinn.
Just about a year ago, I got a call from him saying, comic strips, you do them, don't you? And I said, yeah. I think we should do one about John Hulley. And for goodness knows why the idea hadn't hit me before, but I said, that's a fantastic idea. Because it's got everything. It's got so much going for it as in the comic book format.
He said, your timing is immaculate. He said, I've just done a comic, Fab 4000. Let's meet up.
A couple of years ago, I met a little Liverpool girl who is really kind and nice and cares about people and cares about the planet. And that's when the whole idea of the Fab 4000 sort of formulated. And I thought, well, we can do something with this. And she can be the leader with her seeing guide dog. Her name is Jayne Massey, and seeing guide dog Whitney.
I was at school and I heard the advert for, Radio City's Superhero Day. So I decided, well, all of my school were technically superheroes because we just get on with stuff even though we've got a disability. So I had the idea that we could raise some money for Zoe's place and then dress up. So that's how it all came about, and then Tim was in at the same time, which was a weird coincidence, and then it all snowballed from there.
Tim's been on the show many times. You know him as an expert on comics, you know him as an excellent presenter and an excellent artist and an excellent writer. He's worked from Marvel Comics, the Beano, the Beezer, most comics, and done lots of television work as well. And he's got together with
Robin
Baynes from the Liverpool Heartbeat.
That's right. It's a charity that's in memory of a lifelong friend, Kenny. And its constitution is to work with young people between the age of 4 and 18 in a fun, interactive and educational way. And hence the comic.
Okay. Now Tim, he's linked up with Tim, who's recently produced a comic called The Fab 4000. Tell us more.
this came to the attention of Robin here, who I'd bumped into because I kept hearing about Liverpool Heartbeat and the good it was doing across Merseyside, helping young people to realise their potential, really, and to believe in themselves, which I'm all for that. And Robin came to me because an obsession of his, I hope he doesn't mind me saying that, is Liverpool's forgotten superhero. Who is he? Well, people have forgotten that. His name was John Hulley.
I knew of John Hulley, but I never knew the full story.
He was there at the beginning. He's the man. He's known as the forgotten man of British Olympic history. And thanks to Tim, that is going to change.
So there's no statues, no blue plaques,
No,
anything?
I am after a statue, and what we're going to do, we're going to raise some money, we're going to get Tim into schools, we're going to get the schools to raise the money, and the Liverpool people are going to raise this money for that statue. He's got to be recognised. No, all right, he's got a grave, got a new grave. But if you walk in the graveyard, you'll see it. If you don't walk in the graveyard, you'll never see it. Like that plaque in Staple Street Bats, unless you go there, you'll never see it. You'll never know about them. So it all come about with the comic. How do we get his name out there? Well, if we get his name out there, how are they going to find him? Need a statue too. Well, there was nobody else other than Tom Murphy was going to do that statue.
Yeah, so I met Robin Baynes a few years ago, many years ago initially, and he was the chairman of the Rotary Club. And then more recently, a few years back, I met him and we got chatting about sculpture and various things. And he was telling me this very interesting story about John Hulley. And he was really excited about it, and he said it'd be great if we could make a sculpture of him. And then
I talking to Tom Murphy, I said, Tom, has anybody ever done a map for you of all your statues? Because you've done loads. He said, well, people have said, but they've never done it. I said, well, do you mind if I do one?
But I sort of didn't really want to get involved in that way. I felt it was a bit sort of like it would be like an ego thing for me. So, but I was sort of pleased that he wanted to do it, and I could see the benefits of it for, you know, when I do talks and things and people ask me where things are and how you get there and all that, I thought it would be nice.
I said, I'll do one through Liverpool Heartbeat. We might make money, and we might not. But it's going to get kids walking. It's a healthy lifestyle walk.
As time went on, the idea of making a bronze sculpture took hold, and then Robin was able to bring the funds together to make that happen.
I thought to myself, well, if I do it through Liverpool Heartbeat, I'm going to have 3 years of hard work, you know, raising the money. So me and the wife, we put the money into it and funded it. And well, why am I doing it? Well, I'm doing it because of health and well-being. And who am I doing it for? I'm doing it for the young people of Liverpool and the wider area.
Yeah, then there's a whole series of things has to happen then. First of all, I have to make a model of the maquette, as they call it, of the sculpture, decide on a scale. And so the model, I think, was about 2 foot tall. And then finally we end up with a clay version of the sculpture and full size. And then once it's finally approved then by the client, it then goes on to the next stage, which is to make a rubber mould of it. And the rubber mould itself has to have another mould on top of that to hold the rubber in place. So the rubber is gradually initially sort of poured on, and then it's sort of scraped on until it achieves the right thickness. And there's various other things like lock-in points and all the rest of it has to be worked out. And then after that's all established, then and the rubber's gone off, then we put the jacket onto it. And then the jacket itself is brought up to a certain thickness where it's strong enough. So then the next thing is to take the jacket off, then take the rubber off, and then the next stage is to take it to the foundry. And at the foundry, the moulds that have been made are filled in with wax to a certain thickness. And then if it was an arm, for instance, you see the wax arm, and in its complete state with any alterations or damage that have been encountered on its journey, that would all be rectified. And then that part would be they'd add something called runners and risers, which is like little channels that will take in the bronze to the arm, to that bit that will be the arm, and then they coat it all in a shell casting. They heat it up, and all the wax comes out, and then in the space that was left by the wax, through those tubes I mentioned, they pour in the bronze, and so then we had to discuss what the final finish would be like. I mean, most people are familiar with statues in the sort of bronze colour, but they actually can get them in a variety of colours, red, green, blue. It all depends on what you're trying to say about the subject in the sculpture. In this particular case, the sculpture of John Hulley is going by the River Mersey, and anything by the River Mersey will be subjected to horrendous weather and salt water blowing in from the river and all that kind of thing, and which ultimately will mean that all the statues one way or other will turn green. So we just thought it'd be the colourist there said he recommended that we should go for a kind of verdigris, like a polished verdigris, and then putting them in place and seeing them go in the ground. Usually I breathe a sigh of relief then, because there's always things that can happen between conversations with the foundry and the groundworks, and you make sure that everything, usually the holes have to be in the right place to accept the statue. So all these little tiny things put together is what it's all about, really.
The 14th of June 2019 was surreal. I'd been invited along to be presented to Princess Anne. And what I loved especially about it was getting there early, about an hour before Princess Anne arrived. There were already hundreds of school kids there.
The 19 schools that had done work on John Hulley were there. There was 4 or 5 organisations that were there. We'd approached MD Productions to come along and entertain the crowd, and they had fabulous dancers and singers.
And then of course you've got the unveiling, which is always exciting, especially if you've got a big VIP, which we did in this case, of Princess Anne.
What an extraordinary thing to see the motorcade pull up and these fancy cars, and Princess Anne gets out. It is odd. Celebrity is a weird thing. And then she comes along the line. Now, Robin beforehand had told me, and she's been presented with the comic. And I'm like, that made me laugh. The very thought that Princess Anne would have a comic book in her hands, never mind a comic book by me. And I sure in my head I saw her taking one look at it and slinging it in the nearest bin. But how wrong I was. Loved the time that she then took meeting Jayne and Whitney, the seeing eye dog. Jayne as and in fact she recognised Jayne from the comic book, which was great because Jayne had turned up complete in the superhero costume that we designed for her. And then she starts quoting scenes from the comic book perfectly. And I'm so taken aback. The only thing I can think of to say to her is this very surreal day just got even more surreal. And I said, you actually read the comic? She looked me in the eye and she said, of course I did.
I was so honoured to meet Her Royal Highness Princess Anne. I was speechless.
So it was a delightful moment in my life that will never be forgotten. And of course then there was the unveiling of the statue.
And at that unveiling, there was 2 visitors to the school. There was a choir from Sierra Leone and there was a choir from Indonesia. And John invited them to the unveiling. And there's 30 kids there singing for Princess Anne as she walked round and went along, shook hands with 70 different people. And The unveiling was in two parts. It was Princess Anne was unveiling the Olympic flag off one of the plaques to John Hulley, while the Ultimate Force were unveiling the John Hulley legacy flag, which was the health and well-being. And the health and well-being flag was made by the 12 schools that had been organised by an organisation called Fun for Kids. And they went out to 12 different schools. 750 kids done a project on John Hulley. And those 12 schools had 2 kids from each school representing the school.
Hello. Your Royal Highness, a very warm welcome to Liverpool, and we are delighted that you're here today to unveil the John Hulley plaque. Along with the young people who are standing in front of you, who are going to unveil the health and well-being flag that's been made by young youngsters from Liverpool schools through an organisation called Fun for Kids. Over there. Thank you, Debbie. I'd also like to say a big thank you to everyone here on this historic day. And it's only fitting I say a few words about John Hulley, who was a trailblazer, a pathfinder and a visionary, a man born ahead of his time. And on the 6th of November in 1865, John Hulley chaired the first meeting of the National Olympian Association, which was the forerunner of the BOA. And at that meeting in 1865, John Hulley was accompanied by Dr. William Penny Brooks and Ernst George Ravenstein. And these 3 men became known as the 3 founding fathers of the modern day Olympics. And if there's one lesson to be learned from John Hulley's life, it is what can be achieved with a clear vision, a steely determination and raw passion. These key life values supersede social backgrounds, education and age. And John Hulley will now no longer be known as the forgotten man of British Olympic history. Thank you. And I'm now going to call on the Royal Highness to unveil the John Hulley plaque.
Firstly, can I thank you for all the hard work you put into raising the profile of this remarkable individual and what he did. I stand here now as President of the British Olympic Association, and as you just heard, he set up the original committee that we follow on from. And he also set the example for Pierre de Coubertin, who managed to create the more international version. But it was from here and from his work, those 3 men set an example that has grown into an extraordinary worldwide movement. It's only appropriate that he should be recognised, but you've done a very good job in raising his profile around the world, so thank you for that. Some things, there is nothing new under the sun, and his understanding of the importance of physical exercise as part of being a healthy individual. He knew that, he could see that. Sometimes we have to be reminded that it's simpler than some people make it out to be, that all activity has a benefit. So thank you for all the hard work you've done. Some of you, I must admit, seem to have covered many more miles than strictly speaking necessary in order to make that point. But I'm so glad you look so well on it. But it is an example for others to follow, and you are welcomed with much respect, so thank you.
When the veil came off John Hulley, it's like, whoa, such a superb landmark of Liverpool. And it was like such a glorious moment when that veil fell down, because suddenly Liverpool Merseyside had a new landmark, and it's so worth going to see.
It was just so magic, and everybody turned up on time. It couldn't have gone better. And I was told that Princess Boyle would only be there for half an hour maximum. And she was there for an hour and a quarter. She didn't want to go. That says it all. And it was the best day of my life, but it's also going to be, I think, a memorable day for a lot of people.
This is the start of the story, really, of John Hulley now, as he goes on to inspire future generations with what he did. And also I would like Robin Baynes' tale to be told, because it's quite inspirational in its own right. You know, and here is a man who has done enormous good for the people of Merseyside, quietly.
Robin is just, he's amazing, and he's just like a real life superhero, what he does for people and charities, and he puts them first and like instead of himself, and it's just amazing.
So Robin is, if anyone's never met him, he's a very enthusiastic man. He's done lots of wonderful things, he's been honoured, you know, for his work in charity, and he just never ever switches off very well. Once he gets an idea, he sticks with it, and you know, he's really, if he wants something done, he's the guy to go to.
Well, I've had a lot of help of a lot of people. For me, it was a deserved monument to a Liverpool man. He's been gone from this world since 1875, but he's there for everyone now, and he'll be there for the next 100 years. You know? So, find out about him. Go and sort it out yourself. See what he's done, and you'll understand where I'm coming from.
This is me.